and welcome everyone to the July 13th, 2020 Tualatin City Council meeting. Tonight we start off with an announcement with the city's award of the Science and Technology Scholarship. And Sherilyn's on mute. So who's running with this one?
I can start.
Right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jerry Ann Thompson, Library Director, and one of my other duties as described is managing the Tualatin Science and Technology Scholarship process. And it's my pleasure to introduce our two winners for this year, Emma Comstead and Justin LeBlanc. And I believe Councilor Reyes had some comments that she wanted to share.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jerry Ann. So as Jerry Ann said, this year's we're going to announce, actually we have announced Emma and Justin. It is my pleasure and honor to announce the Tualatin Science and Technology Scholarship winners for the 2021 school year. Thanks to a grant from TE Connectivity, we were able to award 2 scholarships this year. So this year's scholarship recipient are Emma, and please, I'm gonna try to pronounce it right, Comstead and Justin LeBlanc. Choosing 2 students to receive a scholarship was very difficult because each of the students who applied were outstanding, and that is really true. It is really outstanding. Not only did each one have impressive grades, but they had also been involved in many kinds of extracurriculums and activities and volunteer work in the community. It was inspiring to see the applications of so many intelligent, hardworking, and community-oriented young people who live here in Tualatin. Emma is the daughter of Britta and Wade Comstead and a graduating senior at Tualatin High School. Emma's goal is to study computer science as well as classes to prepare her for medical school. She hopes to pursue a career that combines these 2 interests, such as writing software that helps doctors diagnose patients with more cases, with more ease. With a GPA of 4.31, Emma is ranked first in her class. Her teacher's letters of recommendation describe Emma as a very dedicated student, extremely intelligent, and a great collaborator. In addition to being a premier student, Emma was captain of the cross-country team, sang in the concert choir, and was a member of the National Honors Society. She excelled in several IB courses, including physics, psychology, and calculus. Emma will attend Oregon State University Honors College with a degree in computer science. Go Beavs! I always say that, sorry. Justin LeBlanc, our next recipient, is the son of Sally and Brian LeBlanc and is a graduating senior at Wilsonville High School. In his application, Justin said that he has always been interested in learning how things work and how things are made. That interest led him to being a volunteer at a STEM summer camp over multiple years and to combine STEM into Boy Scouts by teaching younger scouts how they can get involved in STEM. Justin is ranked 3rd in his class. In addition to excelling in several IB classes, Justin is also a member of the National Honors Society. He was part of the Wilsonville High School first robotics team and received multiple science awards. His chemistry teacher described Justin as having a love of science and experimentation, calling him one of the best science students he has worked with in his career. That's a lot. Justin was a junior assistant scoutmaster and senior patrol leader in the Boy Scouts of America and volunteered with the Oregon Food Bank at the Oregon Humane Society. Justin plans to attend the Engineer Honors College at Oregon State University. Go Beavs! The scholarship committee consists of, well, we don't have to read that because it just consists of a group of us and we select the from several students, and I can really tell you they are very competitive and it is really difficult to select 1, 2, or 3. I want to select them all. I mean, it's really competitive. So I'm really happy, and it is with great pleasure to congratulate you two, Emma and Justin, for receiving this scholarship. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
You wanna say
would either of
something?
you like to say something?
Speech,
Or both
speech,
of you?
speech.
I just want to say thank you
Right.
for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much to the City of Tualatin for this opportunity. I really, really appreciate it. It's going to help a lot. Thank you.
Just remember all those nights where you were like, is this worth it? Working my butt off to get these grades. It does pay off. It is worth the work to get good grades and volunteer, do good things in the community. The community will recognize you back, and I'm glad you both can use this money towards OSU.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else like
Thank
to
you.
say anything?
I'll just say congratulations to you both, and our mayor's right. Hard work, dedication, and service really pay off. Best of luck on your future, although it doesn't sound like you need a lot of it.
Good point. All right. Thank you both for attending tonight, and thank you for applying. And Emma, keep in mind that the next big thing is artificial intelligence with medical research and medical technology. So that's where it's going.
And thank you, Jerry, Ann, for putting this together, you and your team.
All right. All right. Next up is public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for anyone to address the city council on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Please keep your comments to about 3 minutes. If there's anyone in the Zoom meeting or at the poll center who would like to address the council, this would be the appropriate time. Do we have anyone at the poll center?
We do not have anyone at the poll center.
Do we have anybody who emailed and said they would like to say something tonight?
I do not have any note of that, no.
All right. Okay.
We don't have any at city offices.
All right. And I don't see anybody with their hand up or waving at me in the video here. All right. That moves us on to the consent agenda. Those items in the consent agenda are considered routine and will be adopted by one motion unless someone in the council would like one of them removed and heard separately later tonight. Tonight, the consent agenda consists of item 1, consideration of approval of the city council work minutes of June 22nd, 2020. Item 2, consideration of approval of a new liquor license application for Brew Dr. Kombucha. Item number 3, consideration of resolution number 5509-20, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with Clean Water Services, CWS, for construction of the 105th Avenue sanitary sewer upsizing along the Garden Corner Curves project. And item 4, consideration of resolution number 5511-20, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, with Washington County for assurance for city construction projects along county right-of-way. Does any city councilor desire to have any of these items pulled from consent? I see none.
Motion to approve consent agenda as read.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read. I'll start rolling through the pictures here. Councilor Morrison,
Yes.
Councilor Pratt,
Aye.
Councilor Brooks,
Aye.
Councilor Kellogg. All right, Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Council President Grimes,
Aye.
and I also vote aye, so it's unanimous. All right. So moving on to general business, item number 1, consideration of resolution number 5507-20, awarding the contract for construction of the Garden Corner Curves project, part of the Tualatin Moving Forward Bond Program, a very highly anticipated project. And I believe this is Jeff.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Jeff Fox, Public Works Director. I'm here with Mike McCarthy tonight. He is the project manager for this long-awaited project, so we're super excited about it. It's really fun to finally be headed towards construction. Mike's going to kind of just walk through a really brief description of the project and show some oh geez, images of, which is a really hard word to remember apparently, some renderings of what the project's going to look like and be available to answer questions and hopefully help everybody kind of understand what we're doing out there. So Mike, take it away.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I'm Mike McCarthy, a Principal Transportation Engineer in the Public Works Department. And as Jeff mentioned, we are really excited to have reached this major milestone for this project. And I'm going ahead to share my screen. So our purpose tonight is to ask you to award the Garden Corner Curves construction contract to Moore Excavation Incorporated for just under $3 million. And I think you're pretty familiar with the project and all the different work that's gone into it. Some have been working on this for several years just to get to this point through the design process, back through the conceptual design where we figured out the alternative that we're proposing to use today. And that includes some new shared use path, flashing beacons, crosswalks at both the Moritok 105th intersection and the Blake 108th curve. And then driver feedback signs, some visual speed reduction, a large concrete box culvert for Hedges Creek in place of the existing undersized culvert, some pretty significant environmental work that's necessary because of the creek crossing, and, but most importantly, the new shared use path along the east side of the project. Since you were last updated back in May, we finished our property acquisition. We put the project out for bids. We had 6 bidders, some of the larger construction firms around the region, ranging from 2.9 million to 3.9 million. And the construction, if approved, would start this summer with a major road closure next summer for the replacement of the culvert, and then scheduled completion in fall of 2021. Funding from both the Tualatin Moving Forward program and the Transportation Development Tax. And it's just a reminder of what we're planning to build if approved. This is looking uphill at the nursery corner, showing the large shared use path down the south and east sides of the road, both walking and biking along this side. And then this is looking through the curves, a crosswalk here with the flashing lights, enhancements there. A little farther down the hill, the pathway, we're looking uphill still. The pathway down the side, stormwater planter between the road and the pathway, and the existing the road, keeping the existing travel lane width to try to keep speeds down as much as we can. And then this is up at the Moritok intersection where cyclists would start crossing the road to use the path going up the east side. And that was all alternative A+ from the concept study a few years back. And so we took this, worked out all the specific engineering necessary to get it through the design process. Any questions, comments, discussion at this point?
Hello?
Mike, if you could pop out of presentation, let us see people's heads.
All right.
Okay. Questions, comments? Lots of hands up. I saw Paul first.
Thank you. I just have one really quick comment, and I want to thank, first off, Councilor Kellogg and his partner in crime, Julie. And Robert, you can help me with her last name because I do a terrible job of pronouncing it, but she's the homeowner that's right next to the corner of the Garden Corner. And without those two, the leadership that they started this project on a long time ago, before Robert was on council and before I was on council, this was their work to get this started. And I just want to point out to everybody that when you want to get something done, you can get something done. And this is, I think, a huge example of city staff partnering with residents and understanding what it was that is needed and was wanted, and then doing some amazing outreach over a long period of time. And I'm sure someone's going to say, hey, Robert started this 6 years ago, why did it take so long? And my comment is, it was just 6 years ago that Robert and Julie started this, and look what we have. And Councilor Kellogg, thank you for your leadership on this. Never would have happened without you.
Valerie was next.
First, I wanted to, really thank everybody involved in this. This is going to be such a great connection for people that bike and run and walk through these neighborhoods, myself included. And I'm so happy it'll be done before I can still use it. And my real question though was the road closure next year. How long do you anticipate that lasting?
About a month.
Okay.
We're still working out the specifics with the contractor. Maybe about a month to remove the old culvert, replace the new culvert, probably install the sewer line at that time as well underneath the road before we put the road back.
And then I'm sure you've thought of this, but there's like a little wetlands as you go down the hill there, and how will that be protected?
Quite a few measures to protect the wetlands. Basically, the contractor's not allowed in it except for the actual work there. There will be a fair amount of work in there next summer, restoring some of the creek channel, building some stormwater treatment facilities that are next to the creek, and a lot of requirements in the contract about how they're not allowed to be in there. And other measures like turbidity monitoring to make sure they're not kicking up too much dirt in the stream and things like that.
Great, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Robert.
Yeah, first, Councilor Morrison, thank you for the kudos. I got to spread them out though. You're absolutely right about Julie Makarowski and her involvement in this, but nothing would have happened without Sarah Singer and Sherilyn's blessing to engage a new CIO and the folks that were part of the leadership there that carried this forward into the capable hands of the Alta Planning and Wallace Engineering folks who done a tremendous job on this project to reflect what the stakeholders wanted and also the safety aspects of it to our current team that's going to carry it through construction. So really tremendously happy about this day. Look forward to it being completed. And just one question quick, somebody mentioned the road is going to be closed for about a month. Do we anticipate that that'll be in the fall or will that be into 2021 when that happens?
Summer of 2021.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
Other comments, questions?
I'd
Grimes.
as long as we're spreading kudos all around, I'll add my share. I had just moved to Tualatin in 2003, and I was on my way up 105th to go to this wonderful place called the Garden Quarter. My first introduction to the curve was two kids coming down the hill, sitting on their skateboards, riding them down the hill through the curves. And that was the very first time that I pulled off onto the shoulder and thought, oh my gosh, this is something else again. So I'm just thrilled that we are able to do this. I love the drawings, the renderings that are in this particular PowerPoint, and I hope we can put them up someplace on the city website because I think that they are some of the best renderings of how this is going to look when it gets completed. And also, I would want to say, don't forget, when we're always talking about the curves and all the added elements there, which I think is fantastic, and the extra crossings at Blake, but not to forget the Moortalk, where we have the bike and pedestrian added pull-out and crossing there, because I think that's going to come in super handy too. And it's a little bit north of the curves themselves, but I think that's going to be a great added benefit. So thank you for the homeowner group there that helped bring this about. And of course, Councilor Kellogg and all his great leadership, but thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
All right. The only thing I'm going to add is, patience and persistence and stubbornness pays off. Yeah, as Paul mentioned, it took 6 years, but as we all know, in government time, 6 years is pretty speedy. 6 years with funding too. So that's something you rarely see. So it's something that's kudos to the city all the way around and for the residents approving the bond measure and for the engineering. And I agree with Council President Grimes. Those are some of the best renderings I've ever seen for folks to see, because it really lets you see what it should look like when it's completed. Go ahead, Sharon.
Well, I thank you for all of that, and such a thrilling project. But I want to call out a couple of things. I would say Jeff's leadership through this has been just tremendous, and the team, as Councilor Kellogg mentioned, Alta and Wallace. But we took, under Jeff's leadership, a different approach to community engagement, and really started with what does the community want and how can we get there, as opposed to previous attempts at looking at this. And it was like, no, that can't be done. That can't be done. It's too complicated. And I just, the persistence and stubbornness of the community, but the staff as well. And I want to call out Jeff and his tenacity and just openness to community, what the community wanted.
Can I just say one thing? You're on mute, Frank.
Go ahead.
I also want to thank Councilor Kellogg and Jeff and all the people who are involved with the leadership. The design is really nice, and that's what I was thinking when I was looking at it as well. I wish I could look at this a little longer. It's one of the presentations I'd like to see a little longer. So that's a pretty nice thing to say. And I live in walking distance from there, so I remember my first visit as well, like Councilor Grimes, where I was just trying to walk up there, and I had my little dogs and my husband, and we both said, this is the last time we're walking up this way. We walk a different way. So it'll be wonderful to be able to walk up there. I'll probably buy more flowers, and and I know it's going to be an add to the community in this area for everybody. So thanks to everybody, and I just had to echo it, and thanks to all the tenacity, especially with Councilor Kellogg and Jeff and the leadership and Mayor.
Jeff, is that presentation, or Mike, is that presentation available, or is that on that website, thegardencornercurves.org?
We can put it up there.
Those visuals, right?
Yes, the visuals are, so they've been up there for a while, but they've been kind of hidden. And so one of the things we can do after this meeting is tomorrow or this week, figure out how to unhide them. Yeah. They're very much in stealth mode, so we'll decloak and let everybody see them. So.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and I'd like also to mention, I'm not quite sure like what sort of a program we use to generate these, but going forward, when we're looking at our other transportation bond projects, this particular format, I just think it's excellent as far as conceptually getting an idea about how a finished project's going to look. And I really appreciated the layout on this, and I just hope that we could use it against some of our upcoming projects, because I really think it's superior to a lot of the different, projected ideas of how things are going to turn out. So I just hadn't seen this particular program before. I really like it.
So we owe all the credit to Alta Design and Engineering. They're the ones that have the magic. So, and fortunately, they are still in our team and working on the bond program. So,
yeah.
All right. I'll go out on a limb here and move that we adopt ordinance 5507-20.
Second.
It's a resolution.
All right, then I'll move to adopt a resolution 5507-20.
I'll second that
And
too.
I'll second.
I got a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 5507-20. Go through the roll here. Councilor Morrison.
Yes.
Councilor Pratt.
Aye.
Counselor Brooks,
Aye.
Counselor Kellogg,
Aye.
Counselor Reyes.
Yes.
Who am I missing? Next, back up here, Council President Grimes.
Aye.
And I vote aye. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 2. Consideration of ordinance number 1441-20, updating Tualatin Municipal Code TMC sections 3-3-060, temporary water service, and TMC 3-3-070, hydrant service. I assume this is Jeff and probably Nick.
Yes, it is. So Jeff Fox again, Public Works Director. We blame Sean for the long name of this particular agenda item. So we're here tonight. Nick's going to talk through some proposed changes to the code to kind of streamline our service for selling temporary water to folks that want to do construction and other work where they don't have a permanent water connection. So I'm going to hand this off to Nick Westendorf, and he'll walk us through it.
All right, Mayor, councilors, good to see y'all again. Nick Westendorf, Management Analyst 2, Public Works. Let me get my screen share running here. All right. And I gotta move the boxes. And we're off, okay. So we are here this evening for your consideration of Ordinance 1441-20, updating TMC sections 3360, temporary water services, and TMC 3370, hydrant services. And give me one moment, I'm going to make this little box in the corner here a little smaller so I can see my own presentation. Okay, so we'll start with what is temporary water, or better put, what is temporary water services? Historically, we've called this bulk water in the city when we talk about the permitting process and accessing the water. But what it is temporary access for construction use throughout the city. So this could be dust control, this could be hooking up a construction trailer for the management of the site, or irrigation, mixing concrete, any need where there's not a permanent need for a water service, but some need for a construction project to have access to water for a short duration of time, typically about 6 months. And this has historically been provided in one of 2 ways. So we've either had a city issued water meter that attaches to a fire hydrant, which folks can use to access water from the system, or we've had a blue usage card, as we've called them internally, which is a self-reporting system for this. So the contractors would take a little small indexing type card and tally up the amount of water they take and return it to us most of the time when the permit was done or the card was complete. This has, in practice, been sort of difficult to administer and enforce, and has been a little restrictive. And so, as Jeff said, we're looking to really hone the process and enhance what we think could be an improved temporary water service program. So diving into the proposed code changes. First and foremost, we are recommending that we modify the approved uses that are allowed beyond construction. So as I said before, historically it was construction use only. In practice, we had been a little bit more generous than that and allowed folks that have Tualatin business licenses to access water for their business needs. We've also gotten a number of applications for individual and residential needs, swimming pool filling and use outside of the city, and honestly a bunch of random water needs that are not permanent. And in the past, we've not been able to meet all those. And so we are proposing that we eliminate that restriction to construction only use and broaden that to whatever needs may be had by the applicant. Secondly, we're looking at increasing the protection of the water system. We have a couple of operational changes that we can do to achieve this. So first and foremost, for the fire hydrant meters, which there's a picture of there on the right, we would propose having the city staff deliver and secure those meters. That will allow us to ensure that the meters stay in town, they stay on the permitted hydrant at the job site, and that they are installed correctly so that the operation is good and they're not leaking and there's less risk to the water system. And in addition to that, we propose requiring backflow prevention on all temporary water services. Backflow prevention stops water from being sucked back into the water system during a pressure event. And so you typically find those on like an irrigation system, but Given the nature of these needs for water, we feel that it would be best if we required those on all connections moving forward. We're looking at creating a water truck fill station at the operations center. So this one here would be in direct response to the usage cards. Historically, we didn't have enough meters, and the varying locations were difficult to manage. And so we had allowed folks to just take water as they saw fit around town. This would really rein that back in and have them coming to the operations center, having city staff verify the water that's taken. So they would do a meter reading while the truck's getting filled. And that would give them the ability to inspect the truck to make sure that those backflow prevention measures are installed on the truck and working functionally. And so it would twofold there: verify the water use to make sure we're recouping our costs, and make sure the trucks are up to the standard that we require for accessing water through a hydrant. And then now that fill station is proposed, we would have the ability to eliminate the usage cards. As you can imagine, the honor system doesn't always work super well. And so we've had some issues in the past with cards being lost when the duration of the permit is over, or reporting no water use. And so it can make it difficult to enforce the program and to make sure that folks are paying for their water that they're actually using and their fair share of accessing the system. So we would propose to eliminate that option altogether. And finally, formalize temporary in-ground water connections. This has always been hidden in the code. We've enhanced it a little bit and brought it forward as a viable option. So if the water meter is too much, or the location of the meters is insufficient, we would propose allowing connections in the ground, similar to a permanent connection, but for a shorter duration of time. This could be used for some of those smaller use needs, like sales offices and construction trailers, things where you don't need a large connection like a hydrant or a truck, but you do still need some water on site for a temporary portion of time. And we hope that those proposed changes would lead to these benefits: better able to verify water use. So accounting wise, we make sure that we're getting paid for all the water that's taken from our system, and we know where and how much water is leaving. Provide water for a greater number of uses. This is expanding access beyond the construction needs. Increase protection of the water system, which is always a priority when we're talking about water, and ensure everyone pays their fair share. And I would add to this, ensure that the city is covering its costs on operating this program well. And with that, it brings us to our recommendation, and we recommend, of course, that you approve ordinance 1441-20, updating Tualatin Municipal Code TNC sections 3360, temporary water service, and 3370, hydrant services. And with that, I will kick it back over for discussion and questions, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Nick. Questions for Nick and Jeff? Paul?
Yeah, just a really quick one, Jeff or Nick. What's the additional cost going to be, or do we know that yet? I mean, you're talking about us going out and the city going out and installing the water meter. What's that additional cost to the business?
So well, we haven't adjusted the fees yet. We're looking at bringing the fees to a future council meeting, but the change for the application for the permit right now, we would increase it by $140. And that is not all to cover the cost of staff delivering the meters, because right now a permit's only $50, and we are not covering the administration time behind offering this at all. That's very little amount of staff time covered in that dollar amount. And the staff already do spend a substantial amount of time on site, handing these meters over to the contractors and providing them instructions on how to use them and how to install them and where to put them. And so we think this won't be too much more time intensive, and it will give us the ability to get out there a little bit more flexible during the time at the date that's scheduled. So we hope it provides greater flexibility, isn't a huge time commitment increase, and we will have that slight permit increase, but that's for, like I said, multiple reasons beyond just the installation of the meter.
Well, you say slight. You said it's currently 50, and you're raising it 140. So you're raising it to 190 is the total fee then?
I believe that is the estimated increase. I don't have that in front of me because that wasn't part of this code update. That would be a future decision for council. Once this code update is set, we would then bring forth the related fees once we know what we're going to have implemented.
Yeah. So, and generally the whole idea, it is just trying to make sure we're recovering the cost of water and the cost of our service to sell the water to the contractors. And so everywhere that Nick said take in our presentation, we could substitute that with sell, because the idea is that folks that are using water are paying for the water and then paying for our services to provide the water to them. And so the idea isn't to make a profit, but it's really to just make sure we're covering our costs. And I think at one of the future council meetings very soon, we'll come back with the rate table adjustment. Nick's done a fair bit of work figuring out what those actual costs are. So it's a little bit similar to whenever we looked at the small cell approach to recovering our costs there, to really trying to make sure that we really knew what it was going to cost us, and we were charging a fair amount for that.
So I'm going to just then kind of go out on a limb here, Jeff, that and take a little bit of trust and again, more kudos for the work you did on the garden corner curves to give you some bonus credit here, because I am usually reluctant to be approving a code and then be told, yeah, we'll let you know what the cost is later. And I'd really be reluctant to get involved with that, but I'm taking you at face value when you say it's going to be the new fee structure will be an at cost to the city structure, and I'm comfortable with that. I have no problems with that. And in this instance, I don't have an issue, given your past history, sir.
Thank you.
This is Maria. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Valerie, Maria, then Council President Grimes.
Oh, okay. I noticed you had in there that you're going to get rid of the small hydrant meters, the 3/4 inch ones, and I'm wondering who that would affect in our community. And is there anybody is there anybody that would use that on a permanent basis too? Just a little.
Go ahead.
No, that's it.
These are not intended to be permanent installations. Depending on the permit type, it ranges from 6 months to 1 year. In my time with the city, which I think is going on about a little more than 2 years, we have only issued 2 of those smaller hydrant meters. And those were probably an inappropriate use. There's a lot of wear and tear that goes on the hydrant itself when you throttle it down to a garden hose size. And so technically speaking, from a operation standpoint, the better practice would have been to do one of those temporary in-ground services. So that would be what we would point folks towards if they need a smaller service for a lesser use.
And is the cost of doing the new method comparable to the 3/4 inch that you previously used?
That's a good question. That would depend on the extent of the service that needs to be installed. And so it would be hard to say depending on how much line needs to be run. And so the cost for the meter itself is very similar for the deposit that we would take on the equipment, but the installation costs could vary depending on the job site specifications.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Maria. Okay, so I am having a bit of that was what Councillor Morrison brought up about the cost. I actually thought about that when you were giving your presentation. I don't know if although we all trust you, Jeff, and you've done a great job, I still have a hard time thinking approving something without numbers or cost, so people can know what to expect or what we would, what to expect us. So that was just my comment. And as you were giving your presentation, I was hoping that I can see some kind of numbers. I mean, even though if whatever that is, minimal or whatever that number looks like, but I was hoping I can see that if you're asking me to approve something. It's just my.
It may be helpful for me to know, but so we do have existing fees for this program, and so those, if the proposed fees were not accepted, like there is existing fees for the implementation of this program. The changes that we proposed could still be utilized, the majority of them. There would just be the question of covering actual costs, and so I hear you. I I just wanted to make that point. I don't know if it helps.
If I could jump in too, so the one piece that we need the code change first before we can assess any type of feed associated with the permit. So that's why we brought the code change first. So that's creating this permit scheme. And then once that's approved, then we have a basis to come back to establish fees for that permit scheme. And so that will be a later decision by the council as stated.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Right, Nancy?
Oh, thank you. Don't anybody punch me for asking this question. Because the hydrant or the temporary water was being used for construction only, and now we're opening it up a little bit more, is there a possibility that it could be something that could be used in conjunction with food trucks? That's my first question. And then my second question is, and I don't think this is at all possible, but I'm just curious, because like, especially out by 99W and stuff, we have some businesses that are really close to Tualatin, but they're kind of in an unincorporated area, but they might like to talk about using some of the city resources like water. Would this ever be applicable to any of those businesses? No. Okay.
It's not really intended to be.
Okay.
And just not just not intended to be, like one of the fundamental things that we talk about annexation is like you can't have it both ways. You can't be part of unincorporated and use all the city services. So if you want to use city services like water and sewer, and if you want to use those things, then you need to incorporate, you need to annex in. And so, like Jeff said, it's not intended to be, and we would fight that pretty hard. I mean, this is temporary water.
Okay. But the food truck question, is that something that would conceivably, since we're kind of opening this up a little bit, could that be something?
We didn't contemplate it.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, it's not something we contemplated. It's an interesting question.
I don't know what water needs food trucks have that they don't already get. I mean, I don't know what
either.
I just remember it was part of what came up when we were talking about where to put them and how long they could stay. And, we were talking about some of them had, like the Poo Poo Shack had temporary electricity through the lot that they were in. They were borrowing electricity from the landlord, but then they were saying they didn't have any water, and we were having all these big discussions with food trucks. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, temporary water. And I just didn't know if we meant that to be an option or if that was never really thought about. So
we did not think about it. And it might be one of those things that's better thought through the food truck ordinance as to how we provide them with services, if we provide them with services. I know there are some food truck pods where the lot does have a water meter, which that water meter is paid SDCs and it pays for the water. So it's kind of contributed that way. The temporary water, there's no SDC charge with it. And so it's really intended to just be temporary versus a permanent meter where you pay your SDC and then that SDC offsets your costs in the whole system. That's really not what's happening with temporary water. The intent is just to sell somebody water, usually so they're building something, maybe so they're power washing. You can envision some other kind of construction-like water uses. But the goal is to not have people just avoid SDCs by getting temporary water. So we talked a lot about that as we were putting this together.
I believe Washington County Health
thank you.
say about that too. I mean, they have to have water already. They have to have hot water to meet all the regulations for Washington County Health in order for them to get a permit for that, to be a food truck.
Okay.
Councilor Brooks.
Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you for, that's was a very in-depth, actually, presentation. There was a lot in there for temporary water, which I've never really thought about too much before myself. And I guess my question goes the other way. Do we have an estimated cost of how much water we're just giving away right now? And do we have an estimated cost of how expensive it is to repair hydrants when people use these hookups improperly? And then finally, if we're going to have some upcharging so that it's done properly and that people that use temporary water pay for it, just like residents pay for their water, can we look at what other cities are charging for similar services for hooking up temporary water? Those are my three questions.
We do not yet have an estimate on the water loss or water not accounted for. It's really difficult to get to that number. And so we've tried to work with contractors and we've looked at previous permits, and it's just such a variable between the job specific needs and the weather and the demands that we don't have a number for you. So I apologize on that. There is a number, and I'm sure if our water manager was here, he could rattle it off very quickly for the hydrant repair. I'm not sure what that is either. And then there was a third question that I am.
Oh, just when the charge conversation comes up, when you come back again about the charge conversation, if we could understand what other cities around us are charging to hook up to temporary water services, something I haven't really considered before. And I want to thank all the people that have been utilizing our services in good faith and that are, utilizing it honestly and all of that. And I know it's really busy when you're doing things and things can be forgotten about, but I think it's important. It's a precious resource. We all know what's happening with water and our infrastructure needs. And so I appreciate your attention to gaps in our system.
And we will definitely look at our neighbors for pricing, just as we did when we were developing the code updates. We'll absolutely look at them and bring that.
All right, any other questions? Council Morrison.
Yeah, a quick follow-up first off to one of the earlier comments. It's in this ordinance is specific that the property has to be located within the city council, within the city boundaries. So that should answer, hopefully that answers that question. I do have a follow, I forgot to ask about this. The city's installing the water hydrant, but the code requires the individual, if I'm understanding this correctly, to return the fire hydrant. So does that mean that they are then disconnecting it at the end, or don't we want to control that process from start to finish?
We do. Are you looking? That may have been an oversight. The intention was to have staff deliver and remove the hydrant.
Yeah. TMC 3-3-063. It's about page 2 of 4. Talks about they got to be located within the city, and then it says that upon termination of a temporary service permit, the meter and all equipment provided by the city must be returned to the city in the same condition. So that to me implies they're supposed to disconnect and remove it.
Yeah, I think our intent was to have city staff both install and remove, so that might be a correction we need to make.
How can we make that prior to a vote, or is that something that I'll let Sean, I see you wanting to chime in, please.
Yeah, so I would just, if it's certainly the council's call, I would leave it as is. So we don't know what in the future, this gets into the administration of the permit itself, what in the future staff may provide to a contractor or whatnot, even though it may not be the meter. It may be something else that is provided in the future, a tool, a whatever. And so what that catch-all does is require that whatever the city provides, that it's returned in the same condition. And if it's not, there's another provision that says they have to pay for the replacement or repair cost.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I do.
Go ahead.
I'm sure you mentioned this somewhere in your presentation, but who are the main users of these temporary water supplies?
Currently, construction companies are by far the main user. We do have some mobile businesses, but it's a much smaller proportion. It's generally construction-related projects and the general contractors.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for staff? Deliberation, motion on the ordinance?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 144120, updating Tualatin Municipal Code sections 33060 temporary water service and TMC 33070 hydrant service.
Sean, this has got to do first and second reading, right? Since it's an ordinance.
Yeah.
So can you amend your motion, Bridget?
Oh, for first reading
Yeah.
By title only.
by title only.
Yep.
Thanks.
Second,
I have a motion and
For
second
amended motion.
for reading of ordinance number
first reading by title only.
1-20 by title only. Counselor Pratt,
Aye.
Counselor Brooks,
Aye.
Counselor Morrison,
Yes.
Counselor Kellogg,
Aye.
Counselor Reyes,
Yes.
Council President Grimes.
Aye.
I vote aye also.
All right, just so you know, the ordinance title is a little different than what's on the agenda. So,
Okay.
so this is ordinance number 1441-20, an ordinance relating to water service, amending Tualatin Municipal Code Chapter 3-3 to create water service permits and creating new provisions.
Holy smokes, that's long. I'll move for second reading by title only.
Second.
Ordinance 1441-20, etc.
I'll second that.
Second for reading, second reading by title only of ordinance number 1441-20. Counselor Pratt.
Aye.
Counselor Brooks.
Aye.
Counselor Morrison.
Yes.
Counselor Kellogg.
Aye.
Counselor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President Grimes.
Aye.
And I vote aye also.
Ordinance number 1441-20, an ordinance relating to water service, amending Tualatin Municipal Code Chapter 3-3 to create water service permits and creating new provisions.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1441-20.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1441-20. Counselor Pratt.
Aye.
Counselor Brooks.
Aye.
Counselor Morrison.
Yes.
Counselor Kellogg.
Aye.
Counselor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President Grimes.
Aye.
I vote aye also. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 3, consideration of resolution number 5513-20, authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Business Oregon for a COVID-19 emergency business assistance program forgivable loan. I believe this is Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. It's a pleasure to be with you today. The resolution before you is authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with Business Oregon for a COVID-19 business assistance forgivable loan program. It's a mouthful. We recommend that council approves this intergovernmental agreement. This program was financed by the state of Oregon. They contributed $5 million to small business assistance for municipalities that had launched or are trying to launch a program this year. So for example, the city of Tualatin received $35,000 in accordance with their program. Excuse me, let me back up. So the state of Oregon allocated $5 million from the state general fund, which combined the $5 million redirected from existing programs to help small businesses adversely affected by the economic conditions associated. This is a state program. We will administer it by their requirements, which is detailed in your staff report. Those businesses that have been affected that can demonstrate 50% or more in decline between March and April as compared to January or February. Businesses must have 25 or fewer employees, and they must not have received any federal funding, and that includes PPP, IDLIP, or any other CARES Act funding that the CARES Act established earlier this year. The city of Tualatin received $35,000 as a forgivable loan. That means that we must meet the requirements of this grant agreement. If not, we would have to distribute that back to the state of Oregon. Just for a little perspective, all cities in the Portland metro area received $35,000 for first-time funding. We did allow our application to be considered for a second round. We figured that if we could help any businesses with any amount of money, we might as well go for it. So we will look to see if we had a second potential round of funding from the state of Oregon. So what this program will do for us is we will use our existing Economic Stabilization Fund funding as the match for the $35,000. And we will use the same criteria that we provided for the Economic Stabilization Fund to administer this program. However, the only difference between what we did prior and what the state of Oregon allows currently is we are only going to limit this to sole proprietors and businesses with 5 employees or less. And the reason we are doing this is due to the fact that we've only received $35,000, we can actually help more businesses if we focus solely on the sole proprietors or businesses with 5 employees or less. However, if we receive additional funding through this program, we will implement the entire program as outlined by the state of Oregon. Funding will be available until funding runs out. We have anticipated that we will be able to assist 7 to 10 small businesses. There are implications that if we do not meet the requirements, like I said, we'll have to get back to $35,000. However, we don't anticipate that. Starting tomorrow, the program will be launched. It will be open for 2 weeks, and then the application itself will be accepted. This is an effort to meet the state of Oregon's efforts of meeting the historically disadvantaged populations and businesses. And so we are working with our diversity task force. We are working with the Business Resource Center that is now established in Tualatin to get the word out. I don't have much more because this is a state program, so I feel a little awkward that I'm talking about it in that context. But what we're doing is we're taking the funding and the program and just implementing it locally. And this should not be confused of what will be coming down the pipeline from Washington County. So I have to keep those two separate. We'll be getting additional programming with that. This is just helping the state and helping our businesses one-on-one, and then turning our attention in 2 weeks to what the city of Tualatin can do with the CARES Act funding from Washington County.
Questions for Jonathan? Valerie?
Do you have any idea about how many businesses you think would meet these criteria?
So no, I don't. We're hoping though that we can get the word out pretty quickly. And we've got a good baseline of what we did with the stabilization fund to get the word out. We're hoping that we get a good turnout, but with such a small amount currently, we're kind of limited with options. So we're hoping a good turnout. But we will also clarify in the promotional materials that if by chance you don't qualify or we run out of funding, that there will be additional opportunities in the future, but I will not specify what those are.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Reyes.
Jonathan, are you going to use some of those business? Are you going to ask them to fill in an application again, or are you going to just go back to those businesses that submitted during the stabilization grant but were not awarded? Are you gonna have some kind of priority there?
So great question, Counselor. Because this is a state program, they have to fill out a particular application. And so this, we will intend it to be just basically a new program. We will reach out to those businesses that did not get consideration or funding for the stabilization fund and just say, hey, there's this opportunity, please apply. But the way that the application process will work this time is, unlike our program, which was entirely online and also mail-in, this will have to be mail-in because they have quite a bit of documents that they have to submit with their application.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Brooks.
Thank you, Jonathan. Nice to see you. And thanks for all your work. It's been nice talking about you at different meetings about the COVID Business Center and all that you work you did with that. So it's just, anyway, I'm very proud. My question is, what is the anticipated average award that a business would receive?
So with the money that we've received, the $35,000, we're anticipating, in the way that they've got it broken up by the state standards, it'll either be a minimum of $2,500 or a 60-day fixed expense up to $5,000, whichever is greater. So they will submit the required paperwork. We will go through it. Luckily, the state's got the process outlined down to the T. So it'll be, we get the application, we'll look. So it'll either be $2,500 or a maximum of $5,000. So if their 60-day fixed expense is $3,700, they'll get $3,700.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Other questions?
Oh, can I ask one more question? Are you going to do a Facebook push on this?
Yes.
So we can share? Okay, thank you very much. I want to make sure that I get it out.
And just a point of clarification, what we've learned from the Economic Stabilization Fund, we have all of our translated documents ready to go starting tomorrow. So both English and Spanish will be available simultaneously.
Wonderful, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Two things. One, you mentioned real quick, Jonathan. So if the entity has received any kind of CARES funding or PPP money, they're not eligible for this?
Correct.
Wow, that's going to be a big disqualifier for a lot of companies, a lot of the smaller companies who did get the money. All right. And then, as Councilor Brooks was saying, I know the biggest megaphone to get this out to the business community, as Jonathan knows, is the Tualatin Chamber. So I'm sure they'll include this in their e-blast that goes out to everybody. But that's kind of disappointing that a small company that took PPP money to survive won't be able to, get this grant. But ideally, we can take care of that when we look at our program in a couple weeks.
Can I just follow up with your thing?
Valerie was
I'm sorry, it kind of bounced off what you were saying though. Okay.
Go ahead. You can go first.
Okay. I just was wondering, if they do get this money from the state, does that disqualify them from applying for CARES money or future other monies? Is there any limitations the other direction?
Based on the program outlined, not this time.
All right. Now, Valerie.
Okay. Well, Jonathan, I'm wondering if you've seen this application form. I guess my concern is, like, I know if you fill out federal forms, they're extremely complex and ridiculous, and I wondered how tough these are. And we're talking about really small businesses, and if there'll be assistance for people in filling out these forms if they need it.
Yes. So great question, Counselor. The form is a little cumbersome. I won't lie. But it's not the actual application, it's the documentation that is required to be submitted as supplementation. Because when we get it, we will get a copy and kind of bind that and send it to the state because they all self-certify. So we're really, as long as we implement the program based on the program guidelines, that'll end up being between the state and the applicant. As for business assistance, I went and spoke with our Business Resource Center today just to kind of tell them that that was coming down the pipeline. So they're ready to go to assist businesses, but as always, we're here at the city ready to assist as well. So luckily this time around, we're going to have multiple people helping businesses with a variety of things. So yeah. Oh, and real quick, as always, the Business Resource Center has a bilingual person on staff, so we have that covered as well.
Thank you.
And the 3 applications that are posted on our website will be Spanish, English, and Vietnamese. Vietnamese is our 3rd largest non-English speaking language, and so we have that ready to go as well.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
I had a quick question. I'm sorry, what was the application period for this?
So the application will be due on July 31st at 5 p.m. Part of the state requirements is as soon as you approve this tonight, we have 45 days to distribute the fund. So we're a little bit time crunched, but we got a pretty good time lead on this one as well.
Okay, and then are we going to put anything like on the front of our website, on the city website, to help make the link to the paperwork that much faster?
We can if you would like, Counselor. We've gotten in touch with Megan and Betsy and Garrett. We kind of have a game plan on social media promotion.
We kind of want to be strategic about, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
We kind of want to be strategic about this because there's more money coming from the county, and I don't want fatigue, application fatigue. So since this is so targeted, it's sole proprietors, businesses with 5 employees or under, we have the ability to target as opposed to mass produce. And but then when we get money, the CARES funding from the county, which is it's going to be a sizable chunk, and you guys will talk at the next council meeting about how to implement that. I foresee a very broad program to get the word out.
Okay, yeah, I totally see your point. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to have like funding fatigue, which is sort of an ironic thing to say in this day and age with the way things are going right now. But I was just, to someone else's point that they just brought up, the idea of, very small businesses, possibly bilingual businesses that if they don't happen to already be a chamber member, I was just thinking like, what is the simplest possible way to get, the business connected with the application? So, but you guys sound like you've put a lot of thought into it. So we'll go social media.
Well, I mean, I think that since it's such a targeted audience, we have the ability to target that audience.
Yeah.
Right.
You got the business license information. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments or motion?
I'll make a motion to, do I say approve?
Yes.
Resolution number 5513-20.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 5513-20. Councilor Brooks.
Aye.
Councilor Kellogg.
Aye.
Councilor Morrison.
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President Grimes.
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so it's unanimous. All right.
Can I vote aye too?
Oh, sorry. You moved. And Councilor Pratt votes aye also. Sorry about that. The pictures moved around on my computer here. All right. So that still is unanimous. Moving on. Items removed for consent. We didn't have any. In work session, we had council communications, but we can also do it now. So raise your hand if you have any communications for city council. Let's see, Paul has his finger up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. One of the things that I didn't bring up after the work session, because I wanted to bring it up in the council meeting, you received an email from a Mrs. Birkeland regarding our police department and her concerns over the safety of the community. I did not see, and I'm not trying to throw, shine a light on anybody, but I had not seen a response yet from the police chief. And so I wanted to follow up on that. And part of that is because I believe that Chief Steele has awful lot of good things to say to the resident that was concerned about our safety. And in conjunction with wanting to see the response from him and waiting for that response, to just give a shout out to the amazing work that our police department has done. And as we see the news and we watch what's happening in our neighboring city and the problems associated with what's going on over there, and the way that Chief Steele and his department have handled the demonstration that we had earlier, not really a demonstration, but the walk through the city, the peaceful walk through the city, and the great work that the police department continues to do. And I see, Chief, I didn't mean to put you on the spot here, but I thought her concern was something, and I was really appreciative, Mayor, of your quick response to her, but I also thought that, that I'd like to see a response to her and know that it would be a positive one from you.
Before Chief Steele, it was my bad. She did respond back, and I did not forward it to you guys. She was very appreciative, but I'll let Chief Steele take it from here about her response back to myself and Chief Steele.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm glad I was paying attention here. Yeah, I didn't respond via email to her. I did talk to her on the phone, had a good conversation with her, and honestly discussed some of the things you mentioned about the efforts we took with the demonstrations that have occurred in the city. Just talked about some of the partnerships we have in place where if we were to have an issue within the city, we'd be prepared for that. But honestly, her intent was more of reaching out to the elected officials to make sure that the police department had the support that we would need if we were ever to encounter any issues within the city. So she was happy with our response and what we were prepared for, but she did want to talk to the council, or at least the mayor.
When we're done with this tonight, I'll shoot you her response back to me.
No, thank you very much. I knew there'd be a good ending to this, Chief Steele, and thank you very much. And the second thing I wanted to say is I'm hearing everybody's comments about wearing a mask, and I just wanted to chime in that my current silence on it is only because I just don't think about it. I've been wearing a mask. I have a daughter who's a type 1 diabetic. I myself have a couple of symptoms that would be problematic. I've been wearing a mask every place I go for a long, long time, and I want to join that bandwagon of making sure everyone understands that if it was possible for our city to pass an ordinance requiring a mask, I would be the first in line to be reading that ordinance, and strongly encourage everyone to wear a mask and join the bandwagon of safety first.
Okay. Other comments? Councilor Kellogg.
Thank you, Mayor. What a good meeting to hear about Garden Corner and all sorts of transportation planning, Southwest Corridor. If we could have gotten in a discussion of Stafford, I think we would have hit the trifecta or whatever it is. Anyway, it makes the following announcement that much more difficult. I will not be running for re-election in November. And the reason for that, I've been wrestling with it for months. And, while there's no guarantee that my kids are going back to school, I think it's pretty certain, given the trend, that they're going to be either home most days or all days. And so between my professional life and now taking over as a responsibility for the education of my kids, I can no longer perform at 100% in this role. I'm not gone yet, so let's not start the farewell tour just yet. I plan to serve out my term through December and look forward to accomplishing, some of the things that we've set forth to do. I couldn't be prouder of the things that we've accomplished over the last 4 years. And while I am going to leave. I won't be gone forever, I don't think. Hopefully, this COVID thing will pass. Some sense of normalcy will return. And so I want to leave you with a quote from Calvin Coolidge, which I bumped across as I was making this decision. The presidential office takes a heavy toll of those who occupy it and those who are dear to them. While we should not refuse to spend and be spent in the service of our country, it is hazardous to attempt what we feel is beyond our strength to accomplish. And unfortunately, that's where I will be this fall and going into next year. So wanted to make that announcement to provide plenty of time for other people to file for the office. I understand that Alex Thurber, who was one of the folks up to for Councilor Davis's seat that Councilor Pratt has so ably filled, will be filing papers. Maybe he did today or he will tomorrow. So there will at least be one candidate for the office, and I will continue to support everyone as best I can from outside the inner circle. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Brooks.
I was just good. Thank you, Councilor Kellogg. I just want to acknowledge, I'm not doing a farewell tour, but I sure understand the need to be with kids, and working with a lot of people as a social worker and trying to make sure that there's childcare because they don't have access to do everything. And it's interesting in this time with this virus how we can see how there's those limitations that a lot of people face all the time. So I'm really sorry to hear that you're not running, but I am glad that you're prioritizing your family during a difficult time, and that makes a lot of sense. And congratulations on the garden curves on the same evening as you had made this announcement. I wanted to say I talked in council communications about other things, but one thing I did not mention was, as an update with the Water Coalition, this is the first year, and especially because we're talking about the water, temporary water use, this is the first year in 5 years that we weren't below the threshold for the where we get our water from. I don't know why I can't think of it right now. The reservoir. Bull Run. Thank you very much. I'm just like, I'm forgetting more and more as I'm getting older. As the threshold for Bull Run. So this is the first year in 5 years that we haven't been in that state of, I would call it drought. And so as much as the rain may put a little damper on things, especially dealing with health things, I'm grateful that we're not dealing with fires on top of it, that we're not dealing with drought on top of it. And just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. Still use your water numbers. The water numbers are available through the coalition website, and also native drought resistant plants are if you're out there gardening, which is something that I know a lot of people are doing during this time. I also, we went through Pollinator Week. I had people reaching out to me just walking on the street, talking about the pollinating plants that they found and that they've found also on our website, and that they're already seeing, hummingbirds and butterflies and bees. So I just want to acknowledge that, there's little things that we can do. There are silver linings during this time where we're making a lot of sacrifices, as Councilor Kellogg pointed out. So just thank you.
All right. Anyone else have any more communications? How about a motion to adjourn then?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second to adjourn our meeting tonight. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you. Good night. And thank you for everyone attending tonight. Have a very pleasant evening.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody. Thank you.